Tonight we try to, emphasize the fact that, no matter what happens, the outcome, we're going to stay together, stick it out. This is a huge win on our home court, against the number one team in the conference, obviously with a great record, and I'm really proud of our guys.
How's it going, everybody? Happy Valentine's Day to you wherever you are. Thank you for joining us here on ESPN 960 on the UVU Coaches Show for another week, another edition. That quote that you heard, that voice was one of the nation's best and leading rebounders and one of the most post-dominant big men right now in Fardaws Aimaq. Utah Valley's Fardaws Aimaq had his nation-leading 21st double-double on Saturday, and he also had his 12th game with over 20 points. Yes, you heard that right. You heard that correctly. His 12th game of the season with over 20 points and his 21st double-double on the season. We're going to dive into the specifics of what happened with Utah Valley last week, but that was his post-game comments after a big-time victory over the number one spot New Mexico State Aggies on Saturday. Great weekend, really all around for Utah Valley athletics. We're going to dive into a lot of that. We have golf in the mix now. Women's basketball had a huge win by 30 points in Las Cruces on Saturday. So we're going to hear from women's head coach Dan Nielsen. And it's that time of year where the snow hasn't really decided what it wants to do yet, but for the time being, it's nice and it's sunny. And so the sky is turning more blue and the baseball diamond is looking more appealing, and especially the brand new sweet looking heated field at the UCCU ballpark for Utah Valley men's baseball. And so they are getting ready to start their season. We're going to hear from the brand new head coach and Eddie Smith as well, and hear about his journey and how he came to Utah Valley and filling in the shoes of Coach Madsen, who's been there for a really long time and did a great job in his tenure. So there's a lot of good things going on right now at Utah Valley. And we'll start with men's basketball because this is the UVU Coaches Show. Like I said, you heard that from Fardaws Aimaq. Fardaws Aimaq was pumped up after Saturday's victory, like he should be. And he came over courtside and spoke with us afterwards. But Utah Valley overall last week went 1-1, and they had arguably the hardest 4-game stretch in the conference. I mean, depending on who you talk to, I thought for my money's worth, I thought compared to everybody else, Utah Valley did indeed have the hardest 4-game stretch where they had to go down to Texas to take on Stephen F. Austin and then take on Sam Houston, sorry. And then come back home to face Grand Canyon and then New Mexico State. And those 4 teams still right now are ahead of Utah Valley in the standings. There's some of the top 4 teams. Then you throw in Seattle U in there, and that really essentially rounds out the top 5. So Utah Valley definitely had their hands full. And on Thursday night, Utah Valley was ahead, and Utah Valley looked like the better team. But they faltered midway through that second half, and they allowed Grand Canyon to come in and have a huge run that really put Utah Valley behind. The final score on Thursday, Grand Canyon 79 and Utah Valley 69. So Utah Valley had their opportunities. They were up by at least 8 at one point in that game. And then midway through the second half, Utah Valley let Grand Canyon go on like a 16-2 run. And in the middle of that 16-2 run, Tim Fuller got caught being the victim of his emotions, and he made a costly foul that he immediately regretted. And Tayshawn Cherry was going up for a fast break dunk, and Tim Fuller comes in from behind, gives him a little push, and they essentially tossed Tim Fuller out of the game. And that was a tough blow for Utah Valley, because at that point, Tim Fuller was providing a lot of good minutes. He had 7 points and 5 rebounds, and he was just another big body down low to really ease the pressure off of Fardaws Aimaq. And once they lost Tim Fuller, it was like Coach Drew called the timeout, brought everybody over, and released the hounds, and then everybody went out and just balled out. And Javon Blackshear and Holland Woods both had 23 points each. And then Sean Millermore, who could just jump out of the gym, his athleticism alone single-handedly kept Grand Canyon in there for a handful of minutes. Sean Millimore finished off with 19 points as well. And then for Utah Valley, you had 4 players in double figures. And usually when Utah Valley has 4 players in double figures, that means something good is going to happen for the Wolverines as far as the result goes. But they just found themselves on the losing end, unfortunately, on Thursday night. But you had Fardaws Aimaq, who continued to do what he does, 6 of 17 from the floor, 2 of 2. He only went to the free throw line 2 times on Thursday, which was just absurd because he usually averages close to 10 trips to the free throw line. And he finished off with 12 rebounds and 15 points. Trey Darthard, he had just a beautiful night, as he always does. 6 of 6 from the free throw line, 2 of 5 from distance. He had 2 rebounds and 16 total points for Trey. And then Blaze Neal was 4 of 5 from the floor, finished off with 10 points, had 4 assists as well. He even had a steal. Connor Harding had 6 assists, leading everybody for Utah Valley with 8 points. Justin Harmon continuing to improve off the bench with 11 points. And then Tim Caesar came out and had a couple blocks, a couple steals, had 2 points and about a half a dozen rebounds to help out. Utah Valley again was plagued with some turnovers, and they're trying to limit those turnovers, but they still finished off with 18, which is too close to 20. And I know that's something that Coach Mark Madsen and his staff were trying to emphasize for this Utah Valley squad going forward. But it was just one of those things where Grand Canyon ended up having 21 fast break points compared to Utah Valley's 12. And it looked like when Utah Valley was out in transition, they look comfortable. They look comfortable. But then again, Grand Canyon came back and Grand Canyon looked even more comfortable in transition. And the points off of turnovers, Utah Valley only capitalized with 12 points off of the 12 turnovers that Grand Canyon gave up. Meanwhile, Grand Canyon had 25 points off of Utah Valley's 12 turnovers. Or 18 turnovers. I apologize. So Utah Valley, they needed to change things up. They needed to switch things up. They needed to look within themselves after that Grand Canyon game on Thursday, because they knew they had an even bigger dog coming in with New Mexico State on Saturday. And we're going to hear from head coach Mark Madsen in our next segment from his post-game comments on Saturday. And there was a question that was brought up about there was mention that there was a players meeting in between Thursday and Saturday. So Coach Mark Madsen addresses that. We'll hear from him, but just to give you a little appetizer, there was a players only meeting that the players themselves called together, and Coach Mark Madsen says that they even canceled a lift, that these players canceled a lift weightlifting session so that they can come together and really put everything out there on the floor and really hash out what's going on. This is a pivotal time for Utah Valley with about 3 weeks left before conference tournament in Las Vegas. So Utah Valley, they go on the road this week, taking on Tarleton and then Dixie State, and then they come back home to take on Abilene Christian and Seattle U before going back on the road and finishing at Grand Canyon and then at Las Cruces. So it's very interesting time here for Utah Valley. Right now, they're smack dab in the middle of the conference, and with that victory over New Mexico State, shaking things up, opening the door for a couple other people to possibly try and get another win over New Mexico State. But going back to that players meeting, Utah Valley, the players, they're competitors, and they wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page. And when Coach Mark Madsen said that he had heard that, he was excited. I mean, what coach wouldn't want their players after a tough loss that they should have won over a rival in their conference? What coach would not want to have their players come together like that? Well, something happened during that meeting, and obviously it worked because Utah Valley came out. It was almost a wire-to-wire victory for the Utah Valley Wolverines on Saturday. The final score, 72-68. Utah Valley took down the number 1 spot, New Mexico State Aggies. And New Mexico State and Chris Chance looked frustrated for a lot of the time, and I'm surprised he didn't get teed up. He was chirping at those officials almost all night long. It was pretty intense at one point, but the officials kept their ground, and they did not tee him up. But Utah Valley did their job. Utah Valley frustrated the Aggies, and Coach Chris Jans really tried almost everything that he could to give Fardaws Amac all these different looks down low. He had 3 different players he was bringing in with Uat Alak, Will McNair Jr., and a couple other players that he threw in there in the post, Johnny McCants as well. It was a tough battle for Fardaws, but he pushed through, and I think he relishes those. He relishes those moments. And Fardaws Amac again finished with his nation leading 21st double and his 12th game of the season where he scored over 20 points. Finished off with 23 points and 12 rebounds, 7 of 9 from the free throw line, and then 2 of 3 3-pointers. And one of those 3-pointers came clutch at the end of the first half. It was literally the last shot for Utah Valley, and he made a 3 and gave the Wolverines a boost, gave the crowd a boost as well. It was great. It was fun to see. So Utah Valley with Fardaws Amac at 23 points, also had Blaze Neal with 14, and Blaze Neal had a couple huge 3-pointers, especially in the second half. New Mexico State chopped down the lead for Utah Valley, which was up at 8 points, came all the way down to about 6 or so. And then Blaze Neal hit a clutch 3-pointer in the corner with the guy in his face to extend that Utah Valley lead back up to 9. Eventually down the stretch, however, Utah Valley did leave the door open for New Mexico State. And with those powerhouses in Teddy Allen and Jabari Rice, they came back and they were down within 1, within 2, with less than a minute left to play. And Utah Valley held their ground. They didn't give up another 3-pointer, and they made their free throws down the stretch, which was huge. You know, Coach Mark Madsen will obviously say 19 to 29 is not that good, but the 19 came in clutch moments, especially with Justin Harmon down the stretch. Utah Valley, there was a scary moment with about 2 or 3 minutes left where Utah Valley missed about 3 consecutive front ends of the 1-on-1, and that left the door open for New Mexico State to come back in. But the end result was great, and Fardaws Amac made 2 clutch free throws with about 1 second left, and that really put Utah Valley in the winner's seat there. Utah Valley was up, and Fardaws Amac with his 2 free throws gave Utah Valley a 4-point lead, and then the place went nuts. And so Utah Valley again victorious on Saturday over the top dog in the conference, New Mexico State. 72-68 was that final score on Saturday. And like I said, you heard from Fardaws Amac when he came and sat next to me after the game was over, and he was fired up. And it was just a great atmosphere, great crowd, and you could tell that meant a lot to the coaching staff, and it meant a lot to those players as well. Fardaws Amac had a big week, and on Thursday night it was a blackout. It was a special theme for the Utah Valley Wolverines, and I want to publicly thank Fardaws Amac. Fardaws, if you're listening to the show, my brother, I appreciate the maple syrup. Everybody who is in attendance, or some people who are in attendance on Thursday, luckily, I don't know why, but I was chosen to be one of those lucky few. I got this cool box, this green box with maple syrup, with Fardaws's face and info on it. And the Big Maple is showing out. The Big Maple is showing out. He's catching people. He's catching their eyes, and he's proven a lot of people wrong. And for what my money is worth, I think that there's a lot of talk between Fardaws Amac and Teddy Allen for the player of the year. And for what my money is worth, not because I got free maple syrup, but for what my money is worth, I do believe that Fardaws Amac is the WAC player of the year. He's a big man, and he's putting up these huge, monstrous numbers in the biggest games. And sure, his team isn't in the number 1 spot, but if you really want to put all the emphasis on it, if you take away Fardaws Amac, Utah Valley is not in the spot. Now with Teddy Allen is a fantastic player. He had 24 points with 11 rebounds on Saturday, almost identical numbers with Fardaws Amac, but they still have other weapons on that team that could definitely provide enough firepower for that squad to continue to play the way that they've been playing. But with how pivotal of a piece to this Utah Valley team Fardaws Amac is, I believe that is the extra the extra juice to put Fardas in that category to win. So we'll see what happens down the stretch. If Fardas continues to put up these numbers over the last, 3 weeks of the season, those voters are going to have their hands full. But Utah Valley on the road again this week. We're just getting started here on the Utah Valley Coaches Show on ESPN 960. Just getting started. Utah Valley on the road this Wednesday in Texas, taking on Tarleton. And you can listen to that right here on ESPN 960. Tip-off set for 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And then Saturday down south, the Wolverines probably fly into Vegas and then take a little bus up to Dixie. And they will take on the Dixie State Trailblazers, their in-state rival, on Saturday. Tip-off is set for 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And again, looking ahead, like we always do, they come back for February 24th and 26th against Seattle U and California Baptist. So 2 very, very tough teams right now. Utah Valley should have beaten Seattle U on the road, and always a tough handful with California Baptist. And then you got Grand Canyon and New Mexico State to finish off the season. So it's going to be an exciting stretch. Utah Valley, they want to put themselves in these positions to compete, and they're doing that. So it's a great time to be a Wolverine fan all around. So like I said, we're just getting started here on the UVU Coaches Show. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back and hear the post-game comments from head coach Mark Madsen, the presser from him after New Mexico State on Saturday. And then coming down the pipeline, the rest of the show, we've got Dan Nielsen from the women's basketball team, and then Eddie Smith from Utah Valley Baseball. So don't go away. You're listening to the UVU Coaches Show here on ESPN 960. Welcome back to the UVU Coaches Show here at ESPN 960. Brandon Crow with you, as always, every Monday as we go through the Utah Valley athletic scene. A big weekend for Utah Valley basketball, men's basketball, and women's basketball. Women's basketball was 2-0 against Grand Canyon and New Mexico State. Utah Valley split, but most importantly, Utah Valley took down the top dog in the conference, New Mexico State, on Saturday. 68-72 was that final score. And here is what head coach Mark Madsen had to say in the post-game presser.
Well, I would say the first thing is you have to give a lot of credit and just talk about how great of a team New Mexico State is. We had a lead late, and they made the lead evaporate, and it came down to a 1 or 2 possession game. And so New Mexico State is a great team. I was proud of our guys. New Mexico State is the cream of the crop in terms of the conference, and our guys came out. We had a lackluster 5-minute stretch at Grand Canyon in the second half from about 16 to about 10. And Grand Canyon controlled the rest of the game. And so we talked a lot over the last 2 days about being consistent throughout the entire 40 minutes. I thought our guys did that tonight. I was proud of them.
One of the things Connor mentioned as we were talking to him was about ball movement. We kind of talked about it on Thursday, but the way the spacing was, the ball movement, 9 of 15 from outside, it just seemed like the offensive flow gave lots of guys opportunities to contribute.
Well, that was definitely an issue in the last game, and it's been an issue off and on this year. The ball sometimes can get sticky. When you're a basketball player, everybody wants to score. You get the ball, you look at the rim, and you think, can I score it? But by focusing on the ball movement, and our players did a great job. Connor moved the ball, Fardas moved the ball. Blaze with the 6 assists, Fardas 5 assists. That tells you right there the ball movement was there. 18 assists on 22 made baskets. So that shows the unselfishness.
How important was it? Jared and I were talking about this in the second half. They kept throwing punches, but you guys responded this time. It wasn't like it got to 8, 10, 12-0 run or something. You guys had a response every time. Yeah, I mean, we did. We had to take a few timeouts, Kyle. We had to take a few timeouts because New Mexico State is a team that can get momentum and they can go quick. They can go quickly. And so, but our players, if you looked out there on the court, you saw them huddling up. They were tight so many times, communicating. You only get so many timeouts as a coach, but I always say the best teams are the player-led teams, and we saw a lot of leadership from our players out there. Just to highlight a few guys, obviously we're hopeful for good news on the Trey Darthard's injury. A lot of guys played with foul trouble. For Connor, Harding, Asa, and Justin Harmon to play the way they did with the foul trouble they had, that tells you a lot about those guys. Justin played 33 and a half minutes, never looked tired once. Played great defense, made big free throws. You talk about Connor, always guards one of the other team's best players and just plays
he can play 4 positions. You know, he can play point guard for us if we need him to. And so a lot of great individual efforts and contributions.
Something Connor mentioned was a team meeting, and I don't know if it was a players-only meeting or if the coaches were there. He didn't want to go into what was discussed, but as a coach, when that happens after a loss or something like that, what do you see? How do you see that change a team?
Jared, I knew that they had met yesterday before practice, and when I heard about it, I think they canceled a weightlifting session to be able to meet, and I was thrilled as a coach, because when it starts coming internally, that's really the sign of mature players, players that want to be great, players that want to win, players that want to have the difficult conversations with each other. Talk about the elephant in the room. Talk about the things that are grating on your nerves, and I think that we saw some results of that players-only meeting.
Mark, talk about the matchup. I mean, they didn't guard each other per se, but Teddy Allen's getting a lot of hype. Fardaw's getting a lot of hype. You look at the stat sheet, and they're almost identical in their stats. Like, the billing for those two guys, is it real? Well,
those are 2 tremendously talented players. Teddy Allen, everyone knows of his talent. His ability to impact a game, change a game. He's a tremendous talent. And by the same token, Fardaw is a extremely unique talent also. Both guys fought extremely hard. In a close game, it went our way tonight. And, I was proud of Fardaw. Fardaw carries so much load. And with that, in the NBA, the best players get the most adulation. They also get the most criticism. And so Fardaw embraces that. He's one of the top players in the country. And we have a locker room full of great, talented players.
I also wanted to ask you, Asa and Jordan Battle even came on tonight, really kind of gave you some maybe the stats aren't necessarily there, but it was more the defensive effort, the execution, and so forth from those 2 guys who haven't played a lot recently. What do you say about those guys that had to maybe fill in for Latrey or even Jaden McClanahan?
Yeah, I told the guys yesterday, I said, listen, we have to look at everything. We might tweak the rotation. We might do slightly different things, so everyone has to be ready. And, I thought Battle came in there. He brought energy. He brings great defense. He has a tremendous voice. He knows what we're looking for, what we want. And he did a nice job out there guarding one of the best players in the conference a lot of the time, because he was guarding Jabari Rice, who's Jabari Rice's body of work in this conference is special. It's special. And Jordan Battle embraced the challenge because it was a huge challenge. Ace is just always ready. Ace is a guy he's getting close to graduation. He's, at a point where, he just knows he doesn't get rattled. Ace has played in so many big games. His high school career here in Utah, the wins that he had at Salt Lake Community, and now the games he's been part of here, he doesn't get rattled.
How do you assess what would you grade the free throw shooting down the stretch? Because there were some misses that allowed him back in it.
Yeah, there were.
You had to have them. You made some key ones down.
Yeah, I think it was Doss that went 2 for 2 late. Yeah. Is that right? And made a 4-point game instead of a 3-point game. No question. You want to shoot the free throws better than 19 for 29, and I believe we will in the future.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Coach.
Sorry, do you have an update on Trey Wilbury? I heard some rumblings that he might be close to coming back.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Wilbury he could be days or weeks away. Now, the question that Trey Wilbury is deliberating on is, does he come back and invest, in X number of games that we have remaining and burn an entire year of eligibility?
Yeah.
And so that's an ongoing decision-making process that Trey Wilbury himself and his family are in discussions on. And so I other than saying that he looks great and that the progress has been fantastic, there's nothing concrete to discuss right now. Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, everybody. That was head coach Mark Madsen taking interviews from the press after Saturday's big-time victory, 72-68 was the final score, Utah Valley over New Mexico State. We'll take a quick break. We're going to come back and listen to Dan Nielsen. Dan Nielsen's going to join the show. Again, he had a great weekend with the Utah Valley Wolverines women's basketball team. He went down to Phoenix, Arizona, took off Grand Canyon on Thursday in a close one, and then they blew out the doors of the Yankees in Las Cruces on Saturday. So when we come back on the UVU Coaches Show, we hear from women's basketball head coach Dan Nielsen right after this. Welcome back to the UVU Coaches Show here on ESPN 960. It's been a while, but this is a fan favorite and one of my favorite interviews. Women's head coach Dan Nielsen. Coach, thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brandon. It's good to be back.
Coach, you had two really big wins last week over Grand Canyon and New Mexico State. We'll dive into that in just a little bit. But first and foremost, how tired are you?
pretty tired. We had with all the flight cancellations this year, we were supposed to get back Saturday night and ended up with a 6 a.m. flight out of El Paso yesterday. So I think we left the hotel at like 4:30. And then when you get home with 4 kids, you don't get to go take a nap. You relieve your wife who's been with your kids all week. So, but it was good, easier to come back, be tired after a couple of good wins. So I'm excited to hopefully build on that.
Did you watch the Super Bowl yesterday?
I did. I might have fallen asleep during the third quarter, but I was awake for the game-winning drive. So I saw the exciting part.
Now, don't want to reveal your age, but did you appreciate the halftime show?
Absolutely. My kids are looking at me like, how do you know every word to every one of these songs? Like, my 12-year-old, who's starting to become aware of how embarrassing I am, was like so glad her friends weren't there. Because Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, that was right up my high school alley right there.
Love it. So, Coach, walk us through some of the challenges that you guys have been facing this year.
Yeah, and everybody's always has injuries and COVID, but the last couple of years. But for us, it's kind of hit us at some inopportune times. We got a bunch of people with COVID coming back right before and right after Christmas. So it took us a while to kind of get our footing back. And we just had a bad run of injuries. Shea Fano's been out for a while. We've had people in and out of the lineup. But on the positive side, we've had some people, I think, have an opportunity to step up. And I think they're starting to get a little more consistent, and saw that this last weekend. The really positive thing, like I said, is that these kids are getting opportunities. But also, I'm really proud of them for how flexible they've been. Typically we're kind of a man-to-man team, but being short on numbers and having some interesting positions, we've done a little bit more kind of soft press into zone, which we don't do a lot of, but we did a lot last week and we're pretty effective. And so hopefully we can kind of keep things going here this week.
Again, just to recap, on Thursday, a big win, 58-50 in Arizona against Grand Canyon. What went right for you on Thursday night?
No, I think we settled into the game well. That's against the better teams in the league. We've had a hard time with that and fought back. It's Stephen F. Austin at home. We won the last 3 quarters, but we had such a abysmal start to the game. We couldn't overcome it. Cal Baptist was a similar thing. We didn't get down by as much, had a chance to tie that one in the 4th quarter. But again, we were fighting back the whole game. I thought at Grand Canyon, we did a good job pretty quickly establishing we were going to take care of the ball against their press. And once we got through that, we were actually then able to kind of dictate the game a little bit with our inside out play, getting the ball into Josie and being able to drive it. We got a little bit better driving the ball this year. So I thought we did a good job settling into that one quickly and then just managing their pressure. So definitely that was a big confidence boost. They're a great team. They were coming off a big win over Cal Baptist. And, anytime you win at GCU, it's a extra cherry on top there.
Totally. And then you parlay that just a couple of days later, going to Las Cruces, and you take down New Mexico State 66-32. That's a big time victory there.
Yeah, it was really nice. That might have been our biggest margin against a D1 team since we've been here. I told the girls, I said I wouldn't mind a few more of those. It wasn't quite as stressful down the stretch. But no, again, similarly, we started well. I think we got up like 9-2 and we were able to build on that. And I was really proud that we didn't let up. We kind of kept building instead of letting them back into the game. And I think that's New Mexico State's first home conference loss. I think they were like 5-0 before that. So definitely 2 good road wins. Really needed it. But now the name of the game is consistency. Can't drop back off. Got to keep building on it.
So you return home, hopefully get some more rest this week. You got Tarleton and Dixie State. First off, with Tarleton, what are you expecting from them?
Yeah, when we played them down there, like I said, it was right after Christmas. We were struggling a little bit with COVID and being off, and had the lead with 5 minutes to go and put them on the free throw line a lot. So they're going to drive it. They're going to look to get to the free throw line. They've got a big post player who's really long, so it's a good matchup for Josie. Typically man-to-man, they'll mix in a little bit of zone. But against them, they'll play really hard defense. They compete really well. So we can't take plays off against them. They've done a nice job down there this year. So we owe them for when we played them right after Christmas. And hopefully the girls are excited to get after it and hopefully build on last week.
And then lastly, this week on Saturday, the in-state rival Dixie State Trailblazers come into town. What are you expecting from them?
You know, they've gotten better and better throughout the year. And I'll give JD credit. They never quit. We were up by 17, I think, with about 7 minutes to go down there. And they got hot, hit a few threes. We got cold, and I think they came all the way back. We kind of had to win it at the end. So the games they've won, they just keep fighting. So we got to be ready for that. They'll definitely zone us a good amount and try and pack in the paint and eliminate our post play. But they run a 5-out offense. They play pretty much all guards. It's a little bit different for us, but yeah, they'll try and spread the floor on us. So it's a interesting matchup basketball wise, and then obviously you add in the state factor. A lot of their girls know our girls, so it adds an extra layer to it. So it's fun. I think as the years go on, we can build that rivalry and make it a good thing for women's basketball in the state. So I'm excited for it.
Why do you think the state of Utah is such a hotbed for basketball?
I think a lot of it has to do with, I grew up in Texas, not here, but same thing, the number of people at a lot of these schools that grew up with a gym in the same place they went to church probably has something to do with it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, when I moved up here from Texas, I couldn't believe it. I grew up in a football state, and my school in particular was really big in baseball. And basketball was kind of the afterthought, to be honest. I moved up here, and when I started going to school and would go to play pickup, and you had to wait for hours to get on, I was like, oh, maybe this was the place for me. Everybody goofy looking like me can shoot and maybe can't jump, but we can shoot it. And so, no, the state, I've been really impressed, even in the last 10 years, the growth of women's basketball in the state of Utah. You're seeing more and more high school players getting scholarships because the club teams, the development at the high school levels improved. And I think you're starting to see that with some of the college teams. I think we're on the upswing. BYU's been good the last couple of years. Utah's on the upswing. Utah State's getting better. Weaver, SUU's having a great year. So you look at it, it's obviously we're competing against them, but from a standpoint of trying to grow the game and continue to help Utah have better women's basketball players, I think it's awesome to see the growth that the other colleges have had.
One of my New Year's resolutions this year is to try and be better with books and read books. I see a stack of books behind you, Coach. Are you a book guy?
Oh, it's ironic. So I have read a couple of those. I'm trying to look up there. I've read a couple of those. Some of them are more like the Sports Illustrated, like one of them's a big man one. So there's some great pictures in there and stuff.
Cool.
My daughter last night, so I have on my nightstand, there's a couple books that are underneath like that I haven't read. But I had a cup of water and it was leaving a circle on my nightstand. So I pulled a book out and set it on top of that. And last night, one of my daughters says, Dad, are you reading a book? I was like, oh no, that's just a cup holder. And they go, how many years has it been since you read a book? Like 3 or 4 or 5. And from downstairs, my wife yells, probably 10. So I should read more. I like to gain information and learn. But for some reason, I either get caught up. If I learn stuff, it's from like a documentary or something, or I just get hung up on the same dumb shows, So
I feel you. It's tough. But Coach, we'll leave you with this. It can't be a Dan Nielsen interview without something related to The Office. So we'll play a quick game for you on who said this.
Okay.
All right. If I don't have some cake soon, I might die.
If I don't have some cake soon, I might die. Okay, is that the episode where Jim is in charge and he's like ordering all of them? I'm trying to remember. Is it?
Yep, right episode.
I'm trying to think who says that though. It wouldn't be Dwight. It's Kevin. It's got to be Kevin.
Very close. Stanley.
Oh, okay. I had 2 people to go with there. That's it. I've failed myself. I got the episode, but I didn't know who it was.
That's true. All right, and then we'll leave you with this last one. I am Beyonce always.
Is that Michael?
That's Michael. There you go, Coach.
Yeah.
You redeemed yourself.
Very
Well,
good.
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time as always.
All right. Hey, appreciate it, man.
That was Utah Valley women's basketball head coach Dan Nielsen. Always a fun time with Dan. He's a good dude, and he's a great coach. And so he's doing a lot of good stuff for that Utah Valley women's program. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Utah Valley baseball head coach Eddie Smith right after this here on ESPN 960. Welcome back to the UVU Coaches Show here on ESPN 960. It's my favorite time of the year. I was a baseball guy, born and raised in my life, and now it's time for the snow to disappear and for the diamond to reappear. And we are pleased to be joined by new Utah Valley baseball coach Eddie Smith. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Coach, we'll talk about your journey and how you came here to Utah Valley. But first and foremost, where did baseball and your love of it come from? Where'd that start?
Yeah, I guess my earliest memories are probably in the Kingdom in Seattle and going to games. And it was one of those things where my dad always said it was a great way for him to get to go watch the Mariners and get out of the house, and a great excuse to be able to take me. And he took me from the time I was just a couple of months old. All throughout my childhood, going to games there, and I think I've been in love with it as long as I can remember anything.
That's awesome. Now, I do have to ask you: were you there when they were giving out free tickets to people who had shaved their head like Jay Buhner?
Oh, absolutely. Still have a big head myself to this day. So went to a few Enterprise nights as a kid, and it was unbelievable. Free ticket and a free haircut. How could he beat that? And Buhner was a pretty fun player to root for.
Oh, that's awesome. What was your favorite experience or favorite memory of watching Griffey?
Oh, there were a lot of them. You know, everybody remembers the 1995 Edgar Martinez double down the line, Griffey sliding in safe at home. But I'll tell you a story for me personally that is ironic with Griffey is in his rookie season, my dad and I went to their home opener. It was maybe their fourth or fifth game of the year, something like that. And I was 5 years old. It was 1989. And I was a pretty stubborn little kid, and I would not let my dad leave to go use the restroom or get concessions during batting practice. I had to see it all. And so batting practice to me was awesome. Get to see the players, try to chase them down for autographs. Well, anyway, finally the first inning comes along, and he needs to get some dinner and a snack, and needs to use the restroom. So we go up, we're in the concession stand line. The bottom of the first is going on, and here's this 19-year-old kid getting his first at bat for the Mariners, and he hits a home run, first major league home run of his career. And we were there at the Kingdom. We just happened to be in the concession stand line watching it on the TV monitor.
No, man. So you still give your dad hassle for that?
Oh, I do, but it's out of love. I mean, the number of things he did for me, it was pretty cool still to say, hey, we were there that day at Griffey's home opener in 1989.
Oh, that's amazing. So, Coach, walk us through your experience of getting to UVU.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a really fun, exciting journey. The game has taken me all over the world, and I played junior college baseball for 2 years, having grown up in the state of Washington. Went to a junior college about 30 minutes from my house, and then transferred to the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. Finished my playing career there, and immediately started my coaching career. Spent 5 years at the University of Virginia. Really, really special place. A lot of influence on my career there from people I was around. And from there, I've made stops as an assistant at Santa Clara, Notre Dame, Tulane. I was a head coach at a junior college in the state of Washington and did that for 4.5 years. And then prior to Utah Valley, I was the hitting coach at LSU. So it's been a fun journey around the map, and really have loved the game in every place I've been. And thankful for those experiences.
All right, Coach. We touched on this when we very first hopped on. I mentioned I'm from Southern California. I got my Dodger hat on. You were at Virginia, so give us one fun Chris Taylor story.
Oh gosh, Chris Taylor. I mean, silent assassin, world-class mindset and work ethic. But I think it's really, really simple. Is that In 2011, we started the season, I think, ranked maybe 15th, 16th in the country, moderate expectations. And we got off to a really hot start. Well, we ended up spending well over half of that season ranked as the #1 team in the country. We went into the NCAA tournament as the #1 national seed. Huge expectations at that point. And in the season before, we were ranked #1 team in the country for all but 2 weeks of the year and didn't go to the College World Series, got upset in Super Regional. And so we plow through the NCAA Regional in 2011, win 3 games, almost uncontested. And then we got to the Super Regional against UC Irvine, and we won game 1 and lost game 2. We're playing a deciding game 3, and it was sold out, packed house. We give up a run in the top of the 9th, and then we're down 2-1. Bottom of the 9th inning, first 2 guys get out, 2 outs, nobody on, 2 singles and a walk, and CT comes to the plate, takes the first pitch, fastball down and away, gets 0-1 strike on him on a good pitch, and the next pitch he hits a laser right up the middle, 2 runs score, walk off, 2 outs. I mean, storybook ending. Wahoo's going to Omaha. So it was pretty memorable, pretty amazing moment in my coaching career. There's no doubt about that.
That's awesome. Now, Coach, what about these experiences in your life, or what are a couple of things that you've learned that you really want to implement here at Utah Valley?
Well, I think that the game rewards toughness. Toughness is timeless. It transcends sports. It transcends generations. And I think that all the teams that I've been a part of that have been successful, we've really had an identity of toughness. And I think toughness in baseball is so much different than football or rugby. It's not, hey, go knock somebody down and then knock them down again. It's bringing a certain mentality every single day to the field, regardless of the conditions. We play long games. We play a lot of games. We have long warm-ups. It's easy to take reps off for the average person, for the good player. The great players, the great teams, they find a way to bring that energy, that intent, that toughness every single day. And I think it's really a big separator.
All right. And I know, Coach, you are pretty close to going to practice here. Got a couple questions for you left. One of them, walk us through some of the new faces that we can look forward to. I know there's a lot. There's close to 20 new faces on this team. Who are some of the people that we should be keeping our eye out for?
I think Kaylor Yates is a player that we're really excited about. Kaylor will be our opening day shortstop. He was drafted out of high school, spent his first 2 seasons at the University of Utah, started at shortstop for them last year on opening day. And we have really high hopes for Kaylor. Unbelievable kid. He's got some incredible talent. And really cool thing about Kaylor is he'll actually get some opportunities on the mound for us also as a reliever. And I think he's a guy to really, really keep your eye out for. On the mound, I think that Cameron Scudder is a pitcher who's with us this year, transferred from Hawaii Hilo, who he's had a really, really good preseason. He's going to get a start on opening weekend. Really looking forward to that. And another name I'm going to throw at you for a pitcher we're so excited about right now is Luke Mccullough. He's a transfer from Xavier University, and he's only got 1 out recorded in his college career. But I'll tell you what, he's done a really good job with us. And what I'll share with you about all 3 of those players and really our entire roster, I'm excited to go get after it with them because they've put in a lot of work. The guys who are still with us, who have made it this far, they've put in a lot of work for each other to improve themselves, to get after it. And I know that we're going to have a really gritty brunch.
Love it. All right. And finally, the last question, Coach. Come to the Valley, #reach the peak. Where did that come from?
Where did that come from? Well, that's a good question. I know that, our staff has really tried to make a big push on social media from the, building the brand, the recruiting perspective and everything that goes into that. Our parents and myself, I grew up looking at box scores in the paper that was delivered to the front door. Well, these kids that we're recruiting, they're waking up and they're shifting through their phone. So that platform is so important in today's recruiting world. You look at some of the stuff going on right now in college football. I mean, you got Brian Kelly out there dancing on a stage. And it's not by accident that some of the best marketing groups in the world are using this platform in the college recruiting ranks. And I think we really are trying to keep up with being on the front line of the recruiting piece. And so that specific phrase, I think it was something that kind of started to trend a little bit early on when we got on board, where, hey, how do we brand this? We have so many great things to offer at Utah Valley. The location's awesome, our facility's awesome, we play in a good league. We've got a school and an administration that, we're so excited about baseball right now. How do we bring this place to life? And I think that you could go on down the line, Subway, Eat Fresh, and on and on and on. Great companies have a tagline. Nike, just do it. Whatever it might be, you hear these taglines, and I think for us, I think it's just something that helps people associate with our program and come to the Valley. Obviously, this is Utah Valley. That part's kind of self-explanatory, but the reach the peak part, hey, we want to work to get better every single day. We want to do special things here. We want to climb, and we want to make sure this is a place where people know that they can come here and become the best player, best person that they could possibly be.
Awesome. Great stuff, Coach. Appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time. Look forward to the season. Look forward to calling some games out there with you, and safe travels to Texas this week.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it.
All right, that was Utah Valley baseball head coach Eddie Smith. Great guy. A lot of energy, and it's really cool to see the direction that this Utah Valley baseball team is going to go. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll come right back and wrap things up here for our Valentine's edition of this Utah Valley Coaches Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more here on ESPN 960. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on this Valentine's Day edition of the Utah Valley Coaches Show. It's been a fun show. I always love talking with Coach Dan Nielsen and Coach Mark Madsen. And Coach Eddie Smith is great. I love him. It was a great interview last segment. And baseball has always been my sport. And I love springtime. I love when the cold weather slowly goes away and then the warm weather comes out. Love it. So Coach Eddie Smith, extremely curious to see how this team shapes up and goes forward in conference play. Like you heard him say, 20 new players. It's crazy to be coming on to this Utah Valley baseball team. And it's a great place to play. It's a great venue. And for those who have not come out to the UCCU ballpark and have seen a game, I invite you to do so. It's awesome. It's a great atmosphere, and it's a great product. And so Utah Valley men's baseball on the road, taking on Texas State this week. So we'll see how they do to kick off Coach Eddie Smith's campaign as the manager and coach of this Utah Valley men's team. And then Utah Valley women's basketball at home this week as well. Tarleton and Dixie State for the women's basketball team. So come out and support them this week. They've got games on Wednesday and Saturday, and then Utah Valley men's basketball on the road. But there's a couple other things I wanted to touch base. Utah Valley women's softball on Saturday. They won in walk-off fashion. They defeated Portland State in game 1, and then defeated UOP, University of Pacific, on Saturday 3-2. So women's softball is cooking, and Olivia Gray got the victory in Saturday's game 1 against PSU, and then Katie Zuniga got the victory against Pacific in game number 2 on Saturday. So some good things shaping up there for softball. And then Utah Valley, they crowned 4 champs in wrestling at the Rocky Mountain Collegiate Open over the weekend. Colby Nelms, Hunter Morse, both won titles while competing for UVU on the day, while Isaiah Delgado and Stockton O'Brien also won while wrestling unattached. So continuing the onward and upward slope of Utah Valley athletics. And then Aguchi finishes 7th at the Pizza Hut Pat Picks Invitational in men's golf. Utah Valley places 6th overall. So lots of fun stuff to keep your eye out for Utah Valley athletics. We're going to put a bow on this show, on this Valentine's edition of this Utah Valley Coaches Show. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Thank you to Dan Nielsen, to Eddie Smith, Coach Mark Madsen, and Ben Schroeder, Jason Erickson for making everything happen at Utah Valley. Thank you to our producers in the studio, and hopefully you have a fantastic week. Again, Utah Valley has 2 games this week. We'll see if Utah Valley men's basketball can continue this momentum after that big-time victory, 72-68 over New Mexico State on Saturday. Take care, everybody. Have a good week. Be safe, and we'll talk to you next week.